Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving straight into something absolutely fascinating, the neuroscience of becoming completely unforgettable. We spend so much time obsessing over what we're going to say, but it turns out understanding the basic, raw biology of human interaction, that is the ultimate biological superpower. It's the secret code to better leadership, unbreakable personal relationships, and just navigating life. So let's see what the science actually says, shall we?
Okay, let's dive into this. 11, that is the magic number. Research shows that it takes exactly 11 seconds for a person's nervous system to completely, subconsciously run a full scan on you. I mean, think about that. In just 11 seconds, literally before a single conscious word you say even registers, their brain has already decided whether to trust you, dismiss you, or remember you. Basically, your fate in a high-stakes negotiation, or even just a first date, is biologically locked in before you've even finished your opening sentence. Wild, right?
Now, when that initial 11-second connection fails, or maybe when your key relationships are just really under strain, your brain does something interesting. It enters what neuroscientists call a low-grade threat state. And look, you can still function like this. You can still answer emails, close deals, get through the day. But the friction of poor communication means you are operating at just a tiny fraction of your true cognitive and emotional capacity. Basically, you're just surviving the interaction. You definitely aren't thriving in it.
So, to really understand why this happens, we need to transition into the actual biology of the brain itself. Why on earth do we react so quickly and, honestly, so defensively in both our personal and professional lives? Well, it all comes down to the literal architecture of our minds. Specifically, it's about how our primal instincts completely overpower our logical, rational thinking the second we feel even slightly pressured or threatened. Let's picture it like this. On one side, you've got the primal brain. Think of this guy as an incredibly fast, turbocharged dragster. It is entirely automatic and it reacts to threats instantly. Then, on the other side, we have the prefrontal cortex. That's the part right above your eyes that handles all your logical, conscious choices. But here's the catch. The prefrontal cortex is like a trusty, old diesel truck. It gets the heavy lifting done, absolutely, but it runs about 200 times slower than that primal dragster. So by the time your rational mind actually shows up to calmly manage a tense situation, your primal brain has often already started shouting. Let's break down the key players here, what we'll call the brain ambassadors. First up is the amygdala, or the warrior, and its whole job is to trigger your emotional defensive reflexes. Then you have the prefrontal cortex, the sapiens, which is all about clear, rational thinking. But sitting right smack in the middle of these two is the orbital frontal cortex. You can think of this as your internal Uno, the peacekeeper. Its entire mission during an interaction is to frantically regulate the amygdala's wild warrior instincts so you can actually step back, read the room, and use empathy and morality. And all of this biology brings us to a massively important foundational truth. The brain processes relationships as a safety signal. When you genuinely connect with someone, when you establish real trust and make them feel understood, you are basically sending a biological all-clear to their primal brain. You're telling it, hey, you are safe. And that safety signal is what successfully turns on their prefrontal cortex, which is absolutely crucial if you want them to make confident decisions, think clearly, and see the long-term vision with you. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that we actually possess a biological hack to control this entire process. And the best part? It's completely free. The absolute easiest, fastest physical action you can take to instantly influence this complex brain chemistry and send that crucial safety signal isn't a clever script. It isn't something you say at all. It is literally something you do with your face. Yep, it's a smile. Seriously, I want you to try it right now as you're listening to this explainer. Just smile. Go ahead, even if you have to force it just a little bit. Consciously moving those 20 specific facial muscles instantly tricks your primal brain into feeling safe and happy. It's arguably the most powerful tool your brain has because it perfectly bridges the gap between a physical action and a deep subconscious emotion.
So, what happens when you do that? Well, you kick off this amazing biological virtuous circle. Step 1, you smile consciously. Step 2, your subconscious picks up on that muscle movement and immediately registers it as happiness. Step 3, your brain rewards you by releasing a massive shot of endorphins. And step 4, those endorphins act basically like natural morphine. They drastically lower your cortisol levels and create an immediate wave of warmth, well-being, and natural stress reduction. You literally just drugged yourself with happiness. How cool is that?
Let's move to and see how this builds. Because this incredible internal chemical reaction, it doesn't just stay locked inside your own head. It actually radiates outward to directly, physically impact the brains of the people you're interacting with. And this, right here, is the ultimate secret to becoming truly unforgettable. This whole outward ripple effect is grounded in the hard science of mirror neurons. This is a crazy phenomenon where the exact same neurons fire up in your brain when you see someone else doing an action, as if you were physically doing it yourself. It is the literal, biological root of human empathy. What it means in practice is that when someone sees you genuinely smile, they involuntarily smile back, even if it's just a microscopic muscle twitch. And guess what? Their brain receives its very own dose of those feel-good endorphins. You are literally altering their brain chemistry.
And this effect brilliantly illustrates synchronicity in action. But there's a catch. Notice how visual contact is happening here. Visual connection is absolutely essential for this mirroring effect to work. If you're constantly hiding behind a screen or looking down at your phone, empathy plummets. Why? Because without those visual facial cues, your orbitofrontal cortex, your internal peacekeeper, just deactivates. And without it regulating things, the amygdala, the warrior, runs completely wild, which inevitably leads to a massive breakdown in trust.
Okay, so how do we take all this internal biology and turn it into a real external strategy? This is where we pivot from basic neuroscience into a concept known as ethical persuasion. It's all about applying these deep brain principles in your business, your leadership, and your everyday life to build lasting, incredibly positive influence.
So the crucial point is this. Most leaders and businesses end up being completely forgettable because they're entirely focused inward on their own goals. Ethical persuasion says no. You have to shift your focus 180 degrees outward. You have to genuinely understand the subconscious frustrations of your clients, and you have to speak directly to their primal brain by making them feel exceptionally safe and deeply understood. You make them the absolute center of the story. You elevate others, and by doing that, you naturally elevate your own success.
Which brings us to this incredibly powerful thought. Your greatness is measured by the greatness you create in others. When you take this understanding of the brain and actually use it, when you really listen, genuinely connect, and help people overcome their frustrations, you make them feel amazing. And when people feel genuinely great because of you, you build a level of unbreakable loyalty that no standard cookie-cutter marketing tactic could ever hope to achieve.
It all loops right back around to that very first biological hack. When you use ethical persuasion to make someone else feel good, they naturally smile. And because they smile, their brain gets flooded with those rewarding endorphins. But here is the real magic. Their brain subconsciously ties that highly positive feeling, that rush of safety and joy, directly to you. You literally become the biological source of their well-being. No wonder they can't forget you.
Understanding this science honestly changes everything. When you prioritize real, genuine connection and focus on making the people in front of you feel safe and elevated, you aren't just communicating anymore. You are fundamentally rewiring relationships. Which leads perfectly to our final takeaway today. At Happy Brains, we make sure your brain is happy because you become unforgettable. But before you go, I want you to ask yourself this. In your very next high-stakes meeting, are you going to rely on a stiff, carefully rehearsed script, or are you going to use your biology to speak directly to their primal brain? Think about it. See you in the next explainer.